What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to YGOPD, your Yu-Gi-Oh! Professional Development, and I am back with a very unique deck. This is Sky Striker Bamboo Sword. I saw this maybe a couple weeks ago on Facebook, really got taken aback, thought it was a really cool fun way to explore and play Sky Striker. I've never played Sky Striker as a formal deck, only as an engine, and of course I'm doing such a desecration to it by playing it this way, but I've had a lot of fun, had about 3 different locals having a chance to play at this, going X1 each time. Still a really fun, cool deck. I think it feels really free. Maybe that's just going second Sky Striker in general, but I've been a really big fan of it. I wanted to share it with you all. It has been featured on Sunny P's channel, my good friend. He shouted me out, really encouraged me to go ahead and share this on my own channel after making some adjustments and doing some more testing. So I wanted to go ahead and do that. Of course, before I hop into it, I want to shout out our new public subs of the channel, Ko, Stefan, and Romulo. Thank you all so much for joining. Sorry if I butchered any of those names. If you would like a shout out and you want to be a part of the channel, make sure you subscribe and have your subscriptions public when you do, just so I know who you are and I can shout you out in the next video. But with all that said, we'll go ahead and hop right into the main deck, and then I'll have a little bit of an extra deck and a side deck for you as well. Okay, starting with the main deck here. This will be pretty straightforward for the most part. There's a few different changes based on how this deck is played and how I've come to be accustomed to it that you may or may not agree with, but I understand that from the get-go, the disclaimer is there's bamboo swords in here. It's already an abomination, so go with it as you will, right? 3 Ray and 1 Rose, that's pretty straightforward there. There's not much needs to be said about the Sky Striker monsters. The rest of the deck is a good 36 spells, as pretty much any Sky Striker deck should be. For the striker stuff, we are of course on triple linkage, one of the best cards ever. The more I play this deck, the more I just feel like I have a better understanding of how to play it. I think this is truly a very skill rewarding deck. Going second though makes it a little bit more monkey brained, at least for me. It makes it a little bit easier, but nonetheless, linkage is crazy. Same thing with Widow Anchor. This is your main form of negation and technically removal by stealing and linking something away. The first difference here is some builds don't even play this card. I am on 3 Eagle Booster. I tested this. I fell in love with this card. The one of came up with me for so many times that it just felt so good to not only protect your stuff, but then it sits there and can't die by battle. So really the only way you're getting outed are things like Kaijus or Underworld Goddess, really niche removal that doesn't typically happen, at least in game 1. And these are a couple easy side outs if you really want. The way I've turned this deck into is outside of just the going second piece, this turns into a simplified game state with Eagle Booster control basically, and Hayate just swinging directly for 15 forever is really powerful. This card just does so much in this deck, and it can take much more advantage of it than I think maybe typical strikers did, because the bamboo swords just cycle themselves into grave so fast. You always have way more spells, I think, than maybe even the average blend of striker, even going second. So 3 booster is something I'm a huge fan of. 2 engage, and then specifically 2 shark cannon, and I'm putting this here. I know it's not a striker spell, and the 1 called by. I've said this before, there's a lot of branded in my area right now. There's also a lot of labyrinth. I want to respect those kinds of decks, especially the gimmick puppet lock. Also a little bit of sprite with Ibli has been around, so anything that removes stuff from the grave is actually really just needed in my area. Typically you don't really necessarily need to play more than 1 shark cannon, but I think 2 and a called by is sufficient. I just need to be able to respect that in my local area. That's kind of basically a preference meta call. 1 afterburners and 1 area 0, 1 hornet drones, 1 multi-roll, and that's pretty much it for the strikers. Again, you can play more than 1 afterburners. A lot of decks play 2. I was originally playing 2, but with how kind of things have changed and I moved around ratios, and also with the bamboo sword as engine being a board breaker as well, I haven't found the need to play more than 1 afterburners, using it once and then cycling it maybe 1 or 2 times more. Once with Kagari, once with multi-roll is typically more than enough. So that's it for the striker package, plus the 1 called by in there, of course. And then for the rest of it, we have a few different things here, starting off with the talents, 2 thrust and 2 triple tactics talent. I think 2 and 2 is great. If you own a 3rd thrust or you own 3 of each and you want to do that, you can. I've tested that. That feels a little bit overkill because, again, it's just one of those things where if your opponent doesn't interact with you, you just kind of lose because you have a bunch of dead cards in your hand. Typically, you're forcing interaction, but I will say 2 and 2 is a really good sweet spot for the deck and something I've been very, very happy with. After that, kind of more board breakers, I guess, in line with both talents and thrust. 2 lightning storm and the 1 dark hole, 1 change of heart, one Herald of the Abyss. Those are all kind of the different board breakers you have some options with. Those are what I am running right now. You could play Hamp over this if you really feel like it. The math is going to be pretty much the same because you have 2 Engage and a Hamp plus, 2 Thrust and a Herald. Of course, you have a little bit of different ways to get to Hamp than you would otherwise, but Hamp requires a little more setup. Herald of the Abyss is a spell, and it's still searchable basically kind of through Thrust, and it just kind of checks a few more boxes for me that I like rather than dealing with Hamp. Even if I hard draw it, I can just use it immediately and don't have to do that setup, so that's kind of nice for me. And then the last part here is going to be kind of the Bamboo Sword engine, so I'll talk a little bit about that. Kind of in a bit of a wonky spot, but I guess I included Rhoda Hero because we do have a target for that in the Bamboo Sword engine. But of course, this gets you to Ray or Rose as well. And then we are also playing one Chevalier. This is a new card from the Battles of Legends Monster Event set. Not as new now with Dune right around the corner, but a really cool card. Has a few different applications. In testing, I started out with 2. I think you could still play 2 if you want. I like this card a lot. I almost considered 3 at one point, just in all the different things it does. It's not a bad normal summon by any means either, but it just has a few different effects. The first is it's kind of a Gradle effect, where if it dies by battle, you can special it back and equip the monster that killed it to this card. So it's kind of, it doesn't take the monster and then equip itself. It kind of does the reverse of a Gradle, I guess you could say, but it's neat removal. The other effect is you just discard it, target a warrior, and then equip any equipped spell that you're allowed to from your deck to that monster. So it's just a nice additional target off of Rhoda when I don't really feel like searching a second Ray or a Rose. I can just add this instead and still get the engine going. So that's something I really do like. It's a neat little card, especially in this version with the Bamboo Sword engine. Speaking of the Bamboo Sword engine, the best part of the deck, my favorite reason of playing this deck, 3 original Bamboo Sword. This card does it all, has a couple different effects if you're unfamiliar with it. This is a new-ish card from Darkwing Blast, not too old, but not too new either. So what it does is if a monster attacks directly and does damage by a direct attack, you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls. So it is a board wipe in the damage step, which is really powerful. This basically makes Hayate one of your best Sky Striker monsters in the deck. And its secondary effect is you can send it to grave to then target a monster on the field, anyone, and equip it with a different applicable equip spell. So this basically, you would equip this, attack with Hayate, do damage, do the board wipe, chain block and damage step, which is really cool. You can do Hayate 1, this 2, or either or. And then from there, you can main phase 2, send this, get a cursed equip to it, and then link off into a card like Kagari, and then chain block Kagari because your next Bamboo Sword, Cursed, has the effect that when it goes from field to the grave, it can add a Bamboo Sword from your deck to your hand other than itself. So this is how you get around different kind of weird interruptions like Ash. You can chain block that way, which is really cool. And again, just cycles so many spells in your grave so quickly and threatens the presence of a board wipe. And then the 40th card is 1 Golden Bamboo Sword. This just says draw 2 cards if you have another Bamboo Sword on the board. This is good. I think in testing, I took this out. I had it at 2. I had it at 3. I tried a bunch of different ways. I think 1 is where it needs to be. It's a 1 of that you can then search off Thrust. It lets you draw 2, and it gives a good hand and better when you open multiple Bamboo Swords. It makes it feel fine because you get a draw 2 out of it. So really good. I really do like this engine. I highly encourage, if you haven't tested it in this or another deck, to try it. I think this deck, of course, takes the best advantage of it. So for the extra deck, it's going to be fairly standard. I have changed a couple things. 3 Kagari. These links are going to be pretty much straightforward. Best card here is Hayate. Unironically, I feel like for this deck, you do need 3. Some builds have cut down to 2. But again, with 3 Eagle Booster as well as the Bamboo Sword engine board wiping all the time, this is really kind of a central piece of the deck. 3 Shizuku, not much needs to be said about that. The 1 Kaina, pretty straightforward, an extra name, and that's time in the round. And then we have the 2 Zeke and the 1 Azalea. I still think you could do 1 and 1, but in continual testing, what's come up for me the most is getting rid of stuff I've been given, whether it's a random token from Punk Gold Pride, it's a Ibly from Sprite, it's, different things like that that just need to be cleared. It's Gimmick Puppet from Branded. Yes, I know you can't special summon under the Gimmick Puppet lock, but you need ways basically to link off stuff you've been given or link off stuff that you take. And not all the time what you take is going to be a light or dark to make Azalea, so that's why Zeke has just been so powerful. The last two are pretty generic. One Donner, again, just having a different type to move around locks and things like that. It can still clear itself and get spot removal is important. And of course, the one of Zeus when we are snatch stealing a lot of things in this deck. Zeus comes up a good bit. So that's it for the extra deck. Clean 40 cards in the main, like I said before, and then I'll go ahead and showcase the side deck and wrap up from there. So the side has a few things here. Again, this is more tailored to your local meta presence. For me, there's a lot of Labyrinth. There's a lot of Branded. Ghost Bell is a mandatory, as well as 3 Cosmic is a mandatory. This might seem kind of weird. I know Anti-Spell isn't running around as much now, but even doing something where if you can like Cosmic snipe out the EEV as a chain to a card like Coup Clock before they can guarantee it's live to use it is important, because most Labyrinth decks are really only playing one EEV in the main. They might side the others, but being able to do that is important. And then, again, I've talked about this before, the Spiritual Water Art a lot in Marincess. There was a guy that did well recently with this in Striker specifically. No one respects this card still. This does a lot for the deck. Hand knowledge and hand ripping is important. And I've been like Gamma Sealed another 2 times or so since even posting the last video that I got featured on Sunny's channel, where people just still give me a Gamma Seal. And I'm like, sure, that's great. I will take a free card out of your hand. And yeah, so it's just a really good card. And then 3D Barrier, probably the best generic floodgate you can still utilize at this point. And then again, like I said, respecting Branded and a few other decks like Cash, Sword Soul, things like that. Grave of the Super Ancient Organism and the one of Trap Trick, just to have a little bit more consistency on the D Barriers and the Spiritual Water Art. So that's it for the main deck, extra deck, and side deck. Clean 40 cards. This is going second, Sky Striker, Bamboo Sword. I've been in quite of a rut looking for something to do well with and having fun. And this has been it. I've been on this now for probably like maybe 3 weeks, almost a month now, and I've just not gotten tired of it. It just feels so good to really have fun and enjoy a deck that's kind of really unique and different and utilizes mechanics people aren't really as familiar with. So it's been a great time. If you have this bulk lying around for the Bamboo Sword stuff, I definitely recommend testing it. But that's it for all of the deck profile. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Later.